planet you've never seen. Look at a world map for a second. Most of it is blue, and yet we live our lives as if the blue part is empty. But the ocean is not empty. It's the largest living space on Earth, a place with mountains taller than anything on land, valleys deeper than the Grand Canyon, rivers that flow without sunlight, and storms that travel through water like invisible hurricanes. And there's one fact that changes everything. The deeper you go, the less the ocean behaves like the world you know. Light vanishes. Pressure becomes crushing. Temperatures swing between freezing darkness and near boiling vents. Creatures glow like living circuitry. Sounds scary for hundreds of kilometers. Down there, the rules are different, and that's why the deep sea is one of the last true frontiers. Not because it's far away, but because it's unforgiving. Today, we're starting a 3-part journey into the deep. The zones humans rarely visit, the truths we keep discovering, and the mysteries still waiting under kilometers of water. This is Truths Hidden Beneath the Deep Seas, Part 1. And we begin with the first thing the deep ocean teaches every living thing. You are not built for it. 1. The pressure of the invisible force that can crush steel. On the surface, water feels soft. You swim through it. You splash it. You drink it. It doesn't feel like a threat. But pressure is the ocean's real weapon. Every 10 meters you descend, pressure increases by roughly 1 atmosphere. The same pressure you feel from all the air above you right now. At 100 meters, it's around 11 atmospheres. At 1,000 meters, over 100 atmospheres. And at the deepest trenches, places like the Mariana Trench, pressure can exceed 1,000 atmospheres. That is like having the weight of a mountain on every square centimeter of your body. This is why the deep sea is not just underwater. It's a high-pressure universe. It bends metal. It collapses unprotected equipment. It turns small structural flaws into catastrophic failures. And it shapes life. Deep-sea animals aren't stronger in the way we imagine. They're adapted. Their bodies often contain fewer air spaces. Their tissues are built to handle compression. Their chemistry is tuned for an environment that would destroy most surface life in seconds. The deep ocean is not a place where you can force survival through willpower. It is a place where biology either evolves the right design, or it disappears. And once you understand pressure, you understand why the deep sea has remained hidden for so long. It's not that we didn't want to explore it. It's that the ocean makes exploration expensive, dangerous, and rare. 2 light dives fast, and darkness creates a new world. Sunlight feels universal. On land, even at night, we understand that day will return. We are built around light, but the ocean eats light. Within the first 200 meters, what scientists call the sunlit zone, light still fuels life. Phytoplankton drift near the surface, turning sunlight into energy. Fish hunt by sight. The world feels familiar. Then you descend into the twilight zone, roughly 200 to 1,000 meters deep. Here, light becomes weak and blue, like a distant memory. You can no longer rely on vision the same way. Colors fade into darkness. Shadows become meaningless. And below that, past about 1,000 meters, there is no sunlight at all. None. Not dim. Not almost. Zero. The deep becomes a permanent night that has lasted for millions of years. And in that darkness, something incredible happens. Life invents its own light. Through bioluminescence, the ocean's living neon language. If you've ever seen a firefly on land, you've seen a hint of what's happening in the deep. But in the ocean, bioluminescence isn't a cute trick. It's a language. Many deep-sea creatures produce light through chemical reactions inside their bodies. They glow in patterns, flashes, pulses, and waves. And they do it for reasons that are brutally practical. To hunt. Some creatures use light like bait. A glowing low dangles in the dark like an invitation. Something curious approaches, and then it's eaten. To hide. It sounds impossible, how can light help you hide? But some animals use counter-illumination, producing light on their underside to match faint light from above, erasing their silhouette. To communicate. In a world without sun, a light signal can become identity. I am your species. I am ready to mate. This is my territory. To confuse. Some release glowing clouds like underwater smoke screens, disorienting predators long enough to escape. If you could see the deep sea at once, it wouldn't be empty darkness. It would be a drifting galaxy of living lights, a silent storm of flashes and glows. Which leads to a strange truth. The deep ocean isn't lifeless. It's alive in ways we're not equipped to notice. For the largest daily migration on Earth, and most people don't know it exists. Here's something that sounds like science fiction, but is completely real. Every night, billions of animals move upward through the ocean, and every morning they sink back down. This is called vertical migration. It involves tiny creatures like zooplankton, small fish, squid, and countless drifting organisms. During the day, they stay deeper, where darkness hides them from predators. At night, they rise toward the surface to feed, and the scale is beyond imagination. This is not a migration of thousands. This is a migration of biomass, so huge it has been called the largest movement of living matter on the planet. If you're wondering how we discovered it, the answer is almost funny. We found it because of sonar. Early sonar operators in wartime noticed what looked like a full seabed moving up and down each day. They called it the deep scattering layer. At first, it looked like a ghostly boundary. Then we realized it wasn't geology. It was life. So the ocean is a heartbeat, a daily pulse, and most humans have never even heard of it. 5. The myth of nothing can live down there is destroyed by hydrothermal vents. For a long time, people assumed deep sea life depended on sunlight. Because on land, it does. Plants capture light. Animals eat plants or eat the things that eat plants. Food chains start with the sun. Then scientists discovered something that broke that assumption. Hydrothermal vents. These are cracks in the seafloor where superheated water, rich in minerals, erupts into the ocean. Some vent fluids can be extremely hot, and when they meet the freezing deep water, they form dark, billowing smoke made of mineral particles. That's why some are called black smokers. And around these vents, in the darkness, under immense pressure, entire ecosystems thrive. Not because of sunlight, because of chemistry. Microbes use a process called chemosynthesis, converting chemicals from the vents into energy. And then larger organisms build a food web on top of those microbes. Giant tube worms, strange crabs, clams, shrimp with unusual adaptations. Life built on the Earth's inner heat. This discovery didn't just expand our understanding of the ocean. It expanded our understanding of life itself, because it suggests a profound possibility. If life can thrive without sunlight, fueled by chemical energy, then the conditions for life might exist in places we never expected, not just on Earth, but under the ice of distant moons, and hidden oceans beyond our planet. The deep sea, in that sense, is not just a location. It's a clue. 6. The abyssal plains of the desert that isn't really empty. Beyond vents, beyond dramatic cliffs and trenches, there are vast regions of the ocean floor called abyssal plains. They are often described as deserts. Cold, dark, flat, quiet. But that's misleading, because even in the abyss, life persists. Slowly. Out there, food is scarce. Most of what falls from above is a thin rain of organic particles, sometimes called marine snow. Tiny fragments of dead plankton, waste, and debris drift downward for days or weeks. By the time it reaches the abyss, it's a faint, slow delivery of calories. So abyssal creatures live in an economy of patience. They move slowly. They conserve energy. They can survive long gaps between meals. And then something rare happens, something like a miracle. A whale dies. A massive body sinks. And when it hits the seafloor, it becomes a temporary universe. A whale fall. Suddenly, the abyss erupts with life. Scavengers arrive. Creatures that specialize in this event appear. Bacteria break down fats and bones. A single carcass can feed an ecosystem for years. So the abyss is not dead. It's a world that waits for opportunities. And when opportunity arrives, it explodes into motion. 7 giant squid. Colossal squid and why the deep creates legends. When sailors used to describe sea monsters, many historians assumed it was pure imagination. But deep sea biology suggests something else. Sometimes people were describing real animals, just distorted by fear and incomplete sightings. Giant squid are real. Colossal squid are real. They are not mythical in the sense of being imaginary. They are mythical because they live in places humans rarely observe. We used to know them mostly from bodies washed ashore, or from skulls found on sperm whales. Those circular skulls, the marks of suction cups, were evidence of violent battles in darkness. Think about that. Some of the most dramatic predator fights on Earth happen far below the surface, where no one sees them. And that's a key truth of the deep ocean. It hides not only places, but events. Entire dramas unfold without witnesses, which is why the deep produces legends so easily. Because when a world is hidden, the human mind fills gaps with stories. Sometimes those stories are wrong, and sometimes they are early drafts of the truth. 8. The first warning sign that we are already reaching the deep. For most of human history, the deep sea was protected by distance and difficulty. But that protection is weakening. Technology is pushing deeper. Deep sea fishing reaches farther than ever. Submersibles and ROV map the seafloor in detail. Industries look at the deep for minerals and resources. And here's the uncomfortable reality. We are entering environments we barely understand. And we're doing it with systems that move faster than our ethics. The deep sea is slow. Many deep sea species grow slowly, reproduce slowly, and live long lives. That makes them vulnerable. If the surface ecosystem is damaged, it can sometimes rebound quickly. In the deep, recovery can take decades or centuries. So as we explore, we also risk disturbing systems older than our civilizations. And that's one of the themes of this series. The deep sea is not just a mystery. It's a responsibility. Part 1 closing, but we've only touched the edge. In Part 1, you've seen the deep ocean's fundamentals. A pressure world that reshapes biology. A darkness that forces life to invent light. A hidden migration larger than anything on land. Events that prove life can thrive without the sun. Abyssal plains that survive on patience and rare miracles. And creatures that gave birth to sea monster legends. But we've still only touched the edge. Because in Part 2, we go to the truly extreme. The trenches, the deepest points, the strange chemistry, the sounds that travel across oceans, and the unsettling things we found down there, including evidence that even the most remote places on Earth are no longer untouched. Part 2. The depths where our stories are born. There is a reason legends come from the ocean. On land, we build fences. We plant flags. We name mountains. We map the surface until it feels owned. But the deep sea doesn't behave like land. It doesn't care about borders. It doesn't keep your footprints. It doesn't allow easy witnesses. And when a place can't be watched, it becomes the perfect stage for mystery. Because down there, kilometers below the sunlight, you can't see what is moving beside you. You can only hear it. And sometimes, what we hear doesn't sound like nature. Welcome back to Truth Hidden Beneath the Deep Seas. In Part 1, we explored the basic realities: pressure, darkness, bioluminescence, vents, abyssal plains. In Part 2, we go deep into the trenches, the hadal zone, the strangest sounds ever recorded, and the reasons the deep ocean became a magnet for rumors. Secret bases, unknown creatures, objects moving too fast, signals that appear, vanish, and never repeat, and one uncomfortable truth that makes everything feel more conspiracy than it should. Even today, we do not observe the deep sea constantly. We visit it in short, expensive, fragile missions. So when something happens down there, it can happen without a single human seeing it. The hadal zone, or Earth's underworld. The deepest parts of the ocean are called the hadal zone, named after Hades, the underworld. It begins around 6,000 meters deep. That's not very deep. That's alien deep. At those depths, pressure is crushing hundreds of times the pressure at sea level. Temperatures are near freezing. Sunlight is non-existent. Food is scarce, arriving like thin snow from the surface. And yet life exists. Not in abundance like a coral reef, but in stubborn, adaptive forms. Creatures that are built for a world that would flatten you instantly. And that fact alone is enough to trigger a certain kind of imagination. If life can adapt to that, what else could be living there that we haven't found? Because the hadal zone is not a flat desert. It's a wound in the planet. A trench carved into Earth's crust. The most famous is the Mariana Trench, but there are others: Tonga, Kamchatka, Philippine Trench. Deep trenches are where the earth recycles itself, where one tectonic plate slides beneath another. That means the hadal zone isn't just deep, it's active, and in an active, hidden, hostile environment, strange things can happen. To what the trenches hide isn't only creatures. When people picture the ocean floor, they imagine sand. But trenches are not soft, peaceful basins. They are steep, jagged landscapes with cliffs, landslide scars, and sudden drops. Underwater, landslides can move enormous masses of sediment. Earthquakes can reshape the seafloor in seconds. And then there's something even more unsettling. The trenches have become sinks for human presence. Even the deepest points on Earth have been found with traces of pollution, tiny fragments carried by currents, falling slowly over time. So the myth of untouched depths is fading. The deep sea isn't a separate world anymore. It's connected to us whether we want it to be or not. And when you realize that, the conspiracy feeling becomes less like fantasy and more like discomfort. If we can reach the deep with our trash, we can reach it with our machines. 3. The ocean's secret weapon is sound. We think vision is the main sense of exploration, but underwater, sound is king. Sound travels far in the ocean, sometimes unbelievably far, because water carries vibrations efficiently. And the deep ocean has layers that can channel sound across huge distances. That means you can detect something without seeing it. A crack, a collapse, an impact, a movement, a call. And here is where the deep sea becomes a generator of myths. Because sometimes we record sounds that do not have an obvious explanation. People hear unknown signals and their minds go to the same place. Something is down there and it doesn't want to be found. Now here's the grounded reality. Many strange ocean sounds have been explained as ice cracking, earthquakes, volcanic activity, or animal calls. But not all of them felt explainable at first. And at first is where legends are born. Because when a sound is enormous, unusual, and comes from deep water, it triggers a primal fear. If something can make that noise, how big is it? For the bloop, the hum, and the fear of scale. One of the most famous ocean mysteries in pop culture is a sound nicknamed the bloop. People described it as a powerful, low-frequency signal recorded in the 1990s, strong enough to be picked up across a vast distance. For years, it sparked theories, a massive unknown creature, a secret underwater machine, a weapon test, or something not from here. Later, the most accepted explanation connected it to natural processes, ice-related events, like massive ice cracking and shifting. And here's the important lesson. Even when a sound has a natural cause, it can still feel like a monster, because we are not emotionally calibrated for deep ocean scale. A glacier fracturing can sound like a beast. A volcanic event can sound like machinery. A shifting trench can sound like a roar. The deep ocean speaks in frequencies that are easy to misinterpret. But this is where the conspiracy vibe comes back. Even if many sounds are natural, the ocean is so vast that the possibility space remains huge, because the deep sea is not a controlled lab. It's a massive, dark, moving world, and the number of sensors is tiny compared to the volume of water. So the uncomfortable truth remains. We can't confidently say we hear everything. We can't confidently say we understand everything. We can't confidently say something else isn't happening beyond the reach of our instruments. That uncertainty is not proof of conspiracy, but it is fuel for it. 5 USO unidentified submerged objects and why people believe. In the sky, people talk about UFO. In the ocean, there's a cousin idea that has grown louder in recent years. USOs unidentified submerged objects. The claims usually follow the same template. Objects moving too fast underwater, no visible propulsion, disappearing into deep water, detected on instruments but not visually confirmed. Now here's the disciplined way to treat this. Underwater detection is hard. Sonar can produce false readings. Temperature layers can bend signals. Speed can be miscalculated if distance estimates are off. And military tracking data, when it exists, often isn't public, meaning the public fills gaps with imagination. But why does the USO idea persist so strongly? Because it fits the ocean perfectly. The deep sea provides 3 things every hidden truth narrative needs: a place to hide, kilometers of water, and darkness. Limited witnesses, few people can go there. Secrecy infrastructure, navies operate in the ocean, and they don't share everything. That combination creates a psychological trap. Even if the simplest explanation is we don't know yet, people prefer dramatic explanation, because it feels like a completed story. And humans love completed stories. Still, there is a real, grounded point hiding underneath the rumors. There are absolutely objects in the ocean that the public does not know about. Advanced submarines, drones, surveillance systems, classified projects. That doesn't mean aliens, but it does mean the ocean is a stage for secrecy. And whenever secrecy exists, conspiracy theories thrive like algae in sunlight. 6 Abase's theory why IT won't die. One of the most repeated deep ocean conspiracy claims is the idea of secret underwater bases. Sometimes the location changes, sometimes the story changes, but the emotional core is always the same. There are places down there where something is built and it's hidden. Here's what we can say without stepping into fantasy. Building and maintaining large permanent facilities in extreme depth is unbelievably difficult. Pressure, corrosion, logistics, oxygen, power, everything becomes a nightmare. Most deep sea operations today rely on remote vehicles and temporary missions. But there's also a reason the base idea keeps breathing. We know humans build secret facilities on land. We know military infrastructure can be hidden. We know underwater surveillance exists. And we know the ocean naturally hides activity. So the base theory becomes a story people use to explain the feeling that we're not being told everything. Is that feeling always wrong? Not necessarily. Is it proof of extraordinary claims? No. The deep sea is the perfect mirror. It reflects our suspicion back at us. 7 The real monsters are creatures that look unreal because they are. Now let's pivot to something that feels like conspiracy, but is simply biology. Deep sea creatures can look like invented horror designs. Transparent bodies, gigantic jaws, needle teeth, expandable stomachs, eyes that seem too large for the skull, or no eyes at all. Some fish have mouths that look bigger than their own bodies because in the deep, you can't be picky. If you find food once a month, you eat it even if it's huge. Some creatures are gelatinous and fragile, because building heavy muscle is expensive when calories are scarce. Some are bioluminescent in complex patterns because light is communication. And then there are the animals that live near vents, where chemistry replaces sunlight. To a surface human, they look like life from another planet. And in a sense, they are. Not because they are alien, but because they evolved in conditions that make normal biology look impossible. So if you ever wonder why people believe monsters exist in the deep, they already do. They're just real animals, shaped by pressure and hunger and darkness. The ocean doesn't need fantasy to be terrifying. Reality is enough. 8 Something even stranger, the deep sea is 8-time capsule. Here is a truth that feels mythic. The deep sea can preserve things. Low temperatures and stable conditions can slow decay. Sediment can bury objects gently. That means the ocean floor may hold shipwrecks from centuries ago, aircraft lost in war, ancient trade routes, and artifacts that never made it back to shore. And this is where imagination ignites again. If the ocean can preserve human history, could it preserve older history? Coastlines change. Sea levels rise and fall. What is underwater today may once have been land long ago. So sometimes the deep sea is not just an alien world. It's a graveyard of environments. A museum without lights. And that gives birth to another style of a lost truth narrative. Sunken cities. Forgotten civilizations. Structures detected on sonar. Shapes that look geometric. Here's the grounded perspective. Nature creates geometry too. Rock formations can resemble walls. Seafloor ridges can look like roads. And sonar images can be misleading. But again, the reason the idea won't die is simple. We have already found real human structures underwater in shallow regions. So people assume deeper structures exist too. Some might not. The deep sea doesn't answer quickly. And that slowness is what makes it feel haunted. 9 The most important conspiracy isn't about aliens. If you want a secret truth about the deep ocean that is absolutely real, it's this. We're moving toward exploiting it before we understand it. The deep sea contains resources, minerals, rare materials, biological compounds, and industries have reasons to go deeper. But deep ecosystems recover slowly. Disturbing the seafloor can create sediment plumes that spread and interfere with life. Noise can affect marine species, and damage can last far longer than people expect. So the biggest hidden story might not be a sci-fi base. It might be a quiet shift in how humans treat the last frontier, not as a mystery to respect, but as a vault to open, and that is where the tone becomes genuinely ominous without needing speculation, because history shows a pattern. When humans find a frontier, they eventually bring extraction, and the deep ocean cannot protest. It cannot post videos. It cannot vote. It can only change slowly, silently, until the damage reaches a level that finally becomes visible on the surface. By then, it's often too late. Part 2 closing, the depths don't confirm our stories, they enable them. So what did we really learn in Part 2? We learned why the deep sea is the perfect birthplace for legends. It hides events. It amplifies sound. It limits witnesses. It hosts real creatures that look like nightmares. It contains real secrecy, because nations and militias operate there. And it holds real evidence of history sometimes preserved in darkness. That combination makes the ocean feel like a place where anything is possible. And maybe, in a way, it is. Not because every rumor is true, but because the deep sea size guarantees that we don't have full control over knowledge. In Part 3, we're going to the climax. The deepest trenches of the strangest life forms the most extreme environments, and the most unsettling modern truth of all. Even at the bottom of the world, we are no longer alone. Not because of aliens, because of ourselves. Part 3. The bottom of the world is not the end. If you could fall through the ocean like falling through air, you would expect the bottom to feel final. A last layer. A dead end. But in the deep sea, the bottom is not the end. It's a boundary between worlds, between water and rock, between living ecosystems and the planet's restless crust, between what we think we know and what we have barely started to understand. In Part 1, we learned the deep ocean's rules: pressure, darkness, living light, chemical ecosystems. In Part 2, we stepped into the zone where stories are born: strange sounds, secrecy, unidentified things, and why the ocean becomes a perfect stage for conspiracy. Now, in Part 3, we go to the extreme edge. The deepest trenches, the weirdest life, and the most unsettling truth of all. Even at the bottom of the planet, you can still find the fingerprint of humanity. Not because we live down there, but because our world reaches farther than we admit. Let's descend. One Challenger deep, where pressure becomes a religion. The deepest known point in the Earth's oceans is Challenger Deep, inside the Mariana Trench. It's so deep that the numbers stop feeling real. Down there, pressure is not just high, it is structural. Everything you bring has to be engineered like a spacecraft, because in many ways, that's what it is. A vessel entering an environment it was never meant to touch. And when people finally reached the deepest zone, they discovered something that should have been impossible. Life. Small, adapted organisms. Microbes. Amphipods and deep-sea scavengers that look like alien insects. Creatures living in a place where our normal biology should collapse. The trench isn't sterile. It's selective. It allows only what can endure the crash. And that endurance is the first mythic truth of the hadal world. The deep doesn't destroy everything. It transforms what survives. To the strangest life is not monsters, it's strategy. Let's talk about the deep-sea creatures that feel like conspiracy fuel. Because if you show someone a transparent fish with a giant joint needle teeth, they don't ask, how does it live? They ask, how is that real? But the truth is simple and brutal. In the deep sea, evolution is not trying to make things beautiful. It's trying to make them functional. The deep sea's most common strategies. 1. Be invisible. Some creatures are transparent, not because it looks cool, but because it erases them. 2. Be patient. Food is rare. Many animals survive by moving slowly, conserving energy, waiting for opportunity. 3. Eat anything. Some fish have expandable stomachs and jaws designed to swallow prey nearly their own size because in a starvation economy, you don't reject a meal. 4. Speak with light. Bioluminescence becomes communication. camouflage, bait, and deception. 5 build weapons out of chemistry. Toxins, weird proteins, heat tolerance, life improvises with whatever works. If the deep sea looks like horror art, it's because hunger and darkness design aggressively. But this leads to a question that feeds the legendary turn. If nature can build creatures this strange, how much stranger could it get in places we haven't sampled? Because even now, many deep species are known from only a handful of observations, sometimes a single specimen. The ocean doesn't give us repeats. It gives us glimpses. Through the deep oceans, events, dramas nobody sees. On land, dramatic events have witnesses. In the deep sea, the biggest events are often unseen. Underwater, earthquakes. A tremor can shift massive slopes, trigger landslides, and reshape the seafloor. Submarine landslides. They can be so huge, they break seafloor cables' real infrastructure like snapping thin strings. Volcanic activity. Underwater volcanoes can create new terrain, release huge bursts of gas, and fuel entire ecosystems. Methane seeps. Places where methane escapes from sediments, supporting communities of microbes and larger organisms. The deep sea is not still. It's active. And this is the core reason why the deep generates conspiracy thinking. When major events happen without witnesses, the human brain hates the silence. We demand a story. So we create one. Sometimes the story is accurate. Sometimes it's not. But the lack of visibility gives every theory room to breathe. For the sonar shapes problem when the ocean draws illusions. One of the most common triggers for the sunken base or ancient city claims the sonar imagery. A scan shows something geometric. A rectangle. A line. A grid-like pattern. And immediately, the internet does what it always does. It's a structure. But sonar is not a camera. Sonar is a translation, sound converted into an image through interpretation. And the ocean is full of terrain that creates convincing illusions. Rock formations with sharp edges, ridges that line up, sediment patterns shaped by currents, and shadows that look like walls. So the responsible approach is to separate 3 categories. Category 1, confirmed structures. Shipwrecks, aircraft, cables, human artifacts. These are real, documented, and sometimes photographed. Category 2, unconfirmed anomalies. Shapes detected, not verified. Interesting, but not evidence of a base or city. Category 3, myths built on uncertainty. Stories that leap from we saw a shape to we know what it is. And here's the twist. The deep sea doesn't have to hide a secret base for secrecy to be real. Because secrecy already exists on the surface. Navies test technologies. Sensors exist. Vehicles move. Data is classified. So people see the real secrecy and fill the unknown spaces with extreme conclusions. The ocean becomes a canvas for suspicion. It's not proof that every rumor is true, but it explains why the rumors feel emotionally believable. 5 unidentified does not mean unnatural, but 8 does mean we don't know. Let's treat the USO idea with maturity. Could there be misinterpretations? Absolutely. Could sonar errors happen? Yes. Could currents and layers distort readings? Yes. But we don't know is a powerful phrase. Because the ocean is so vast that it's entirely possible for instruments to record anomalies without immediate explanation. And that is the real legendary aspect of the deep. It creates gaps in knowledge large enough for entire stars to live inside them. If you've ever wondered why deep-sea mysteries stay alive for decades, that's why. Not because the ocean confirms every theory, but because the ocean refuses to confirm or deny quickly. It just stays dark. 6th, the most disturbing discovery. The deep is not clean. Now we reach the part that flips the mood from legend to warning. One of the most shocking truths discovered in recent decades is that even the deepest ocean trenches contain traces of human pollution. Think about what that means. A place that sunlight never touches. A place humans can visit only with extreme technology. A place so deep it feels like another planet. And yet our fingerprint is there. Microplastics. Industrial chemicals. Debris that sinks. Particles carried by currents and gravity over time. The deep sea used to be protected by distance. That protection is gone. This is the moment where the conspiracy vibe becomes unnecessary, because reality is darker than fantasy. We don't need secret bases to prove humans affect the deep ocean. We already do, and we did it quietly, not with one dramatic event, but with billions of small choices made on the surface. That's the true horror of the modern ocean. The deep sea is so vast that we assumed it was immune. It isn't. 7 deep sea mining of the next chapter we haven't written yet. Here's where the story becomes a cliffhanger, not a conclusion. As technology advances, the deep sea is increasingly viewed as a resource source. Certain regions contain mineral deposits, materials that industries want. But the deep sea is not a simple warehouse. It's an ecosystem, and deep ecosystems are slow. Many deep organisms grow slowly, produce slowly, recover slowly. If you disturb the seafloor, you don't just move dirt. You can create sediment clouds that spread, settle, and interfere with life possibly across large areas. You can add noise to a world that communicates through vibration. You can break habitats that took centuries to form. So the big question isn't only what secrets are down there. It's, what are we willing to destroy before we understand it? That's the real modern conspiracy, not aliens, not monsters, not bases. The real conspiracy is that we might treat the last frontier like a disposable zone, because it's far enough that nobody sees the damage. It's why the ocean feels haunted and why that feeling matters. There's a psychological reason the deep sea generates fear and fascination. Because it triggers 3 primal instincts. 1, fear of darkness, what you can't see. 2, fear of scale, what is bigger than you can grasp. 3, fear of isolation, being alone in a place that doesn't care if you exist. And those instincts shape the stories we tell. Sea monsters, ghost ships, hidden civilizations, underwater bases, unidentified objects. Some stories are false. Some are exaggerations. Some are metaphors for real phenomena. But the feeling beneath them is real. The ocean humbles us. It reminds us that human control is local, temporary, and fragile. On land, we can pretend we own the world. In the deep sea, we can't even pretend. 9 final truth of the ocean is not a background. It's the main story. The deep sea is not just an empty gap between continents. It regulates climate. It stores heat. It moves carbon. It feeds surface ecosystems. It contains biodiversity we haven't catalogued. And it holds history. Shipwrecks. Lost aircraft. The remains of ancient coastlines, geological skies that tell the planet's story better than any book. So when people ask, what's hidden down there? The most honest answer is, everything. Life, death, secrets, evidence, warnings. And the deeper you go, the more the ocean teaches a single lesson. You don't discover the deep sea once. You keep discovering it, because it never stops being bigger than you. Thanks for watching Truths Hidden Beneath the Deep Seas. If you enjoyed this series, like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. And tell me in the comments, what do you think the ocean is still hiding?